Okay, in our continuation with the last lecture, that is on the general properties of viruses, where I have touched upon various properties of the viruses, like how they appear, what is the replication, what are the methods of cultivation, how do you cultivate the viruses in the lab. That was the general properties of viruses, and this is the in continuation with that lecture. And today we will be learning about the virus host interactions and the laboratory diagnosis of viral infections. So what happens sorry, what happens when virus enters into the human host, how they enter and what they do once get entry into the host, and how host interacts with that virus which is not belonging to their own body, and they recognize them as a non-self. So this virus host interaction is very interesting. As you are aware, one of the, in practical I have told you that HIV virus has got the window period which is up to 3 to 6 months. It means that virus has entered into the body, but it is dormant in the nature. It does not tell the host that it has actually entered into the host, and host also did not recognize that virus has entered and there in the dormant phase. So this virus host reaction is very interesting. That is what we are going to study today. This virus host reaction is also nothing but a pathogenesis and defense mechanism by the host. Pathogenesis when we are talking about the viruses, and defense mechanism when we are talking about the host reaction. So what are the different factors in viral pathogenesis? Entry into the host. This is very important, and by which route it enters into the human, whether it enters through the respiratory tract, whether it enters to the skin contact or some other way. That is very important. After entry into the host, there is a 3 courses of infection. What happens actually when virus enters into the host? Immediately when it enters into the host, it tries to enter into the specific cell by having those which are having the specific receptors which are similar to the receptors of the viruses. So what happens then? They enters into the host cell and they start replicating. So this is primary replication. Then what happens after that? They try to spread systemically to the various other organs of the body, organs of the host, and there either they go into a dormant phase or they start again multiplying. That is called as secondary replication. And during this process, entry and establishing and replication, this is also called as cell or tissue tropism. Then effects of viral infection on the cells, that is actually the pathogenesis, cellular pathogenesis of the viruses. And then what happens as a result of this infection? There is a injury or damage to the cells and tissues of the host. Other way, if the host immune response is proper, it tries to restrict that viral replication and try to remove that viruses from the body. That is the host immune response. And what happens after the host immune response? The virus either get cleared or the virus still persistent into the host, because your host immune response is not able to or capable of dealing of these viruses to remove from the body. So the virus must have something very dangerous antigenic determinant or virulence factor which makes them persistent into the host cell, and after that it sheds, viral shedding occurs. So these are the different factors which are responsible in the viral pathogenesis. So in short, what are the steps in the viral pathogenesis? Viral entry, primary replication, viral spread, cell tropism, always cell injury and clinical illness, that means signs and symptoms. Then patient either recover from that infection or by clearing the viruses, or remain into the infection by persistence of these viruses into the host, and further the viral shedding occurs. So what are the different ways by which viruses get entry into the host cell? First and foremost, we will see skin. through cuts or abrasions, minor abrasions, animal bites. For example, the herpes simplex viruses or rabies viruses. Rabies viruses because there is a bite from the dog, rabid dog. So through skin it enters and it establishes in the brain and it causes the mortality to the patient if not treated early. Then there is a second route, that is the respiratory tract, which is most commonly responsible for influenza infection and the current pandemic, that is the COVID-19. Para-influenza viruses also get transmitted from the respiratory tract. Then gastrointestinal tract, rotavirus, which is the most common viral infections in the pediatric patient where the gastrointestinal infections occurs, and then polio viruses. That is why it is also called as fecal-oral route of transmission. Then conjunctiva and other mucous membranes, genitourinary tract. That is why when you are doing any procedure on your patient, you must wear the goggles to avoid the infection to your conjunctiva through the mucous membrane, of course. Genitourinary tract, hepatitis B virus, and the most common is human immunodeficiency virus, that is HIV. The patient may also, the virus may also get direct entry into the bloodstream by needles. If the needles are used from one patient to another patient, there is possibility of getting infection of hepatitis B or HIV viruses very easily. Blood transfusion, if a donor is positive for HIV and without screening, if you are trying to give the blood, then infections like HIV, hepatitis C virus, hepatitis B virus can cause the infections. Of course, insects can also be the transmission route, and the examples are the arboviruses. Dengue, example of viral infections received through vectors. Course of viral infection. In the earlier slide I have already narrated about the primary replication, where viruses usually replicate at the site of initial entry. If the site of initial entry is the respiratory tract, they will immediately responsible for having the signs and symptoms in the upper respiratory tract, and when they reach into the systemic, then they go into the deeper, towards the lower respiratory tract, into the host. The infection remains localized at the site of entry as in influenza viruses, rotaviruses, or may show systemic spread as in the herpes zoster viruses. This herpes zoster viruses is also called as Nagin in Marathi. This is the recurrence of the herpes viruses which has been there in our body as a dormant phase, and it is spread through the systemic spread. And what is the systemic spread? Many viruses produces diseases at sites distant from the point of entry. It means that if the viruses has entered through the skin and their systemic spread is in the brain, like in the rabid viruses, so this is nothing but the systemic spread. After primary replication, they spread via blood, neurons or lymphatics to other organs. Presence of virus in blood is called as viremia, and we have discussed this in one of the practicals also. What is the toxemia, what is the viremia, bacteremia. So presence of viruses in blood, presence of toxin in the blood, like that. But septicemia is different word which we know now. The viral spread is determined by its organ and cell specificity, that is called as cell tropism. And what is the secondary replication? Secondary replication takes place at susceptible organs, tissues following systemic spread. After first what happens? Primary replication. After that it spreads systemic, and then after spreading, then it again replicate, that is called as secondary replication. So cellular pathogenesis or effects of viral infection on the cells. What happens when viruses enter into the cells? Cells can respond to viral infection in the following ways. Our cells do not keep quiet. They try to fight with these viruses. What happens? Generally there are no changes, no apparent change. There is no change in that cell, and this is because viruses has given some signals to the cell as it hasn't entered in only. So there is no change. The cell will not come only. Second, the cell will die. Lysis occurs because Viruses want to replicate their progeny. They want to have their progeny. So they start producing or giving instructions to the host cell to manufacture all the parts of their structure, and they assemble and then they come out by lysis. And the example is polioviruses. Otherwise, what happens? Cellular proliferation. What does it mean? Once virus enters into the cells proliferate and it forms a growth where you can call it as a molluscum, and this is because of the cellular proliferation. Malignant transformation. Sometimes there are certain oncogenic viruses which turns the normal cells into the malignant cells, and then cytopathic effects in the tissue culture. This is not in the host, but it can be seen in the laboratory. Cytopathic effect, it means that if you have a monolayer of the cells, and then if you want to see whether the cytopathic effects are not there, is there or not by the viruses, then you can study into the tissue culture. There is a term syncytium. Syncytium is nothing but a mass of cytoplasm containing several nuclei. You can see here, okay, in this diagram. Many cells fuse to form multinucleated giant cells. This is multinucleated giant cell. This is due to the expression of cell surface glycoproteins in viruses like human immunodeficiency virus, herpes viruses, and respiratory syncytial viruses. So this is also one of the basis of identification of different viruses. Now coming to the one more term, that is the inclusion bodies. Inclusion bodies are nuclear or cytoplasmic aggregates. These are the aggregates of stainable substances, usually proteins. So these are derived from the viruses, and they are occurring as an aggregate either in the nucleus or in the cytoplasm. They represent sites of viral multiplication in a cell and usually consist of virions or virus antigens. Most characteristic histological feature in virus infected cells helps in diagnosis. So these inclusion bodies are different for different viruses and can easily stained with the staining techniques and can be seen under the light microscope. Usually viruses cannot be seen with the light microscope, but these inclusion bodies can be demonstrated with the help of light microscope, and that can become the help in the diagnosis of the viral infections. The structures with a distinct size much larger than the individual virus particle, shape, location, and staining properties, and can be demonstrated in virus infected cells under the light microscope. This is what I was referring. You cannot see viruses under the light microscope, but definitely you can see the inclusion bodies which are formed by different viruses. Now we will see which are the different inclusion bodies which are or types which are produced by the different viruses. Location, it can be differentiated on the basis of their location, formation of where they are produced. If they are produced in the cytoplasm, the example is pox virus, and the inclusion bodies is called as Negri bodies. Nucleus, intranuclear inclusion bodies are classified into two types. The inclusion bodies which are manufactured or produced in the nucleus are Cowdry type A, which are granular, variable in the size, and are produced by the herpes viruses and yellow fever viruses, and Cowdry type B, which are circumscribed and multiple, and example are polioviruses and adenoviruses. There are certain viruses which produce these inclusion bodies in both cytoplasm as well as nucleus, and the examples are the measles viruses. They can be differentiated on the basis of staining technique. If they are acidophilic, pink in structure, they are generally Negri bodies which are produced by rabies virus, and basophilic if they are appearing as blue, and they are produced by the adenoviruses. What is the outcome of viral infection? Clinical outcome, subclinical, that is the inapparent. I have referred many times, we suffer from the subclinical infection or inapparent infection. That is why we have the some amount of antibody response. Even the antigen antibody reaction, serological reactions, we discussed this term, right? So we don't actually get infected, but if someone is infected in and around, and through that subclinically you will also get infection or may not suffer from the disease also. but you have some certain amount of antibody response. But clinical, yes, you only get the infection which is apparent. Clinical infections can be acute infection means sudden, and chronic infection means the patient is suffering from that infection for years. So what happens in the acute infection? There is a complete recovery. The patient get infection like influenza, seasonal influenza. We suffer from couple of days and immediately we get recovered. Our immune response will take care of that. Recovery with residual effects, for example, acute viral encephalitis leading to neurological sequelae, and they proceed to chronic infection. Some acute infections can proceed to the chronic infection or the latency. Latency means they remain dormant in the host. And chronic infection, silent subclinical infection for life. Patients suffer from these infections for the life. Example is cytomegalovirus. Every one of us are suffering from these infections subclinically. Cytomegaloviruses or Epstein-Barr viruses. We are studying these viruses in detail in one of the lecture. A long silent period before disease, that is HIV. This I have referred the window period. There is a long silent period. Virus will tell the body that I have entered in your cell. So this is again one of the example. Reactivation to cause acute diseases. Reactivation takes place in these silent period time after that, and they reactivate and they cause the acute diseases, and examples are herpes viruses, and the example is the shingles, Nagin, which I was referring. The chronic diseases with the relapses and exacerbations. There are certain times when certain viruses are responsible for the chronic diseases with relapse. This is commonly seen in the hepatitis B virus and hepatitis C virus. And some chronic infections lead to cancers. For example, EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, STLV, human T lymphotrophic virus 1, human papillomavirus, human hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C virus, human herpes virus type 8. These are all responsible for cancers because they are there in the patient body as a chronic infection. That leads to the cancer malignancies. The Fenner in 1948 studied how the virus is spread in the mouse, and the example was mouse pox. The mouse pox enters into the host by skin, through the skin, and they multiply and proceed along lymphatics to the local nodes, and then they enter into the blood. This is primary viremia, and further by systemic spread they transport it to spleen, liver, that is central foci, and extensive multiplication, massive spillover in blood, that is the secondary viremia occurs, and then onset of clinical symptoms starts. Viruses reach target organs through bloodstream, and multiplication leads to distinctive lesions. This is how the Fenner had narrated the pathogenesis or spread of the viruses in the experimental animal. I have told you the window period or incubation period. Now even you have come to know there is a incubation period of 7 to 14 days in the COVID-19. What is this incubation period? The time taken for the virus to spread from the site of entry to the organs of viral multiplication, and thence to the target organs for the production of lesion. So time taken from the entry and till the production of disease or lesions or signs and symptoms is called as incubation period. Okay, this is influenced by the relation between the sites of entry and multiplication and lesion. What does it mean? If the site of entry is skin and if it is the organ of interest is brain, the incubation period is longer. If the site of entry is respiratory and the incubation is again upper respiratory tract, that is why in the coronavirus it is 7 to 14 days. But in HIV it is 3 to 6 months. More than that also. It depends upon the relation is between the site of entry and the multiplication where they want to multiply in the systemic organ. Site of entry and site of lesions are same. IP is short, incubation period is short because they do not have to travel much from the entry to the interested organ to form a lesion. That is why incubation period is short. In systemic, the virus enters through respiratory tract or at any and produce lesions in the remote targets that will take longer time. For example, in the chicken pox it is 10 to 20 days. Now host response. Till now we have come to know what viruses does to the host. Now what host will do? Maybe immunological or non-specific. Immunological response, We know now immunological response are two: humoral immune response and cell-mediated immune response. Humoral means production of antibody. Cell-mediated means activation of different types of cells. Humoral response protects the host against reinfection by same virus by producing the antibodies like IgG and IgM. IgM are generally detected in the recent infection. IgG are generally detected in the past infection. And IgA are the mucosal surfaces of respiratory and gastrointestinal. So these are the secretory antibodies. These are the systemic antibodies. These are the appearing first and disappearing first. And neutralizing antibodies prevent initiation of infections. And what other response by the host? It is a cellular response, recovery from the viral infection, and they destroy the virally infected cells. For example, in the HIV viruses, CD4 cells get infected. The CD4 cells will tell that I am infected by secreting some chemokines, and that results in calling the CD8 cells, that is also called as cytotoxic T lymphocytes. They will come and selectively they kill the infected cell only. This is the beauty of host response to the viral infections. Mostly gives lifelong protection. So host response in nutshell to the viral infection, if you consider the non-specific response, macrophages, which we know now, they are wandering 24/7 to phagocytose the infectious agents, and they destroy their cell. Or fever, if a patient has fever for quite some time, it is also one of the defense mechanism. But if fever remains for a couple of days, it's not a defense mechanism, it is the infection. Okay, so you have to differentiate between the fever for a couple of hours and fever for a couple of days. Okay, hormones, corticosteroids enhances most viral infections. Malnutrition can also lead to viral infections, higher incidence of complications and fatality rates. Extreme ages are vulnerable for viral infections. Again, in the non-specific, you can have the interferons. These are the most common and important as a antiviral substances, and these are produced by the virus infected cells, makes neighboring cells resistant to viral infection. See how beautiful immune mechanism is going on. The infected viral cell will make neighboring cells resistant to viral infection. आपण आपल्या शेजाऱ्यांना जास्ती त्रास देतो. No direct effects on viruses. They do not kill directly virus infections, but then they are responsible for other cells to kill these viruses through the signaling. That is, interferon can act as a signal. On exposure to interferon, cells produce a protein, translation inhibiting protein, TIP, which is referred as, which inhibits the translation of viral mRNA, messenger RNA. Now what happens, how these cells, these are the cells, okay, these are the cells, and we are trying to find out how interferons are produced. Okay, now this virus has entered into the cell. Okay, what happens? See, the moment virus enters into the body, this infected cell will release these interferons, and what happens in the next, and this is called as antiviral state, and then the viruses are removed by the other cells. Okay, and this is how they get rid of the viruses. You could have seen the virus was there inside these cells, and that has been taken care by that cell through this signaling mechanism. There are three types of interferons: alpha, beta and gamma. Alpha interferons are produced by leukocytes mainly, and the beta are produced by fibroblast and epithelial cells, and gamma are produced by the activated T cells and NK cells. These natural killer cells have a huge role in the immunity against the COVID-19. So these natural killer cells are very important. So they produce the gamma interferon. What are the properties of interferon? You may get SAQ on interferon. Properties of interferon, they are species specific, not the virus specific. Okay, RNA viruses are better inducers than the DNA viruses. So RNA viruses are better inducers. Interferons are production can be enhanced or increased by increasing the temperature up to 40 degrees Celsius. So when you are suffering from infection, having fever, that time it is possible that the interferons are getting produced, or they can be inhibited by steroids and increased oxygen tension. These are the two ways by which you can inhibit also. What are the therapeutic use of interferons? It can act as antiviral, not directly, but it can motivate the other cells which is not infected to take care of the viruses. So example, interferon alpha is currently approved for certain cases of acute and chronic hepatitis C virus and chronic hepatitis B viruses. These are the experimental studies which are going on still to know whether it is actually antiviral or it helps other cells to take care of that. Macrophage activation, they are important in activating the macrophages, and the interferon gamma has been tried for lepromatous leprosy. This is bacteria actually, but they have seen in this how these macrophage activation occurs. Anti-tumor, now there are studies which are looking for the role of these interferons in the anti-tumor or anti-cancerous like Kaposi sarcoma or CML or melanoma. Then they have been tried for multiple sclerosis also, and usually they are trying on the interferon beta. What are the side effects of interferons? Fever, malaise, fatigue, muscle pains. So these are the side effects of the interferons. How viral persistent? You might have heard the persistence of virus, either removal of the virus or the persistence of virus. Persistence, that means they remain in the host body for a long time. So initial herpes simplex viruses, they cause infection at the lip, in and around mouth. Okay, and what happens? They travels to the lymphatic system or the nervous system, and they go into the neurons in the dorsal root ganglia, and they remain latent. They remain quiet here, and they do not cause any secondary replication. What happens? The moment the person goes some or have some risk factors, these dormant phase, latent phase viruses will start reactivating and cause the infection at the original site. This is the persistence, and this is the recurrence. Here it is persistent, here it is recurrence. That means reactivated and causes infection at the initial site. This is the viral persistence. Prevention and treatment, antiviral agents, interferons, and viral vaccines. Now we are waiting for this. Already it has come into the market, but still there are lots of myths and facts about the COVID-19 vaccines. So the vaccines have big role in the viral infection. Now coming to the second part of the lecture, that is the laboratory diagnosis of viral. How will you diagnose? Now first we will see what happens. This, carefully see the diagram. Viral life cycle, how virus enters into the cell. So first is the attachment. Now next, once it enters, penetrates, what happens? It releases or uncoating it's a nucleic acid. So nucleic acid is, when nucleic acid is entered, you can see here the signaling, the virus, the host cell giving the signals. Okay, green dots here you can see lines. Okay, this is the signal given by the host that I am infected. So what happens here? They transcribe, replication occurs with the help of the host DNA. The viral RNA or DNA will give the direction to the host DNA to manufacture their individual part, and then there will be assembly, and then there will be release. So entry, uncoating, translation, transcription, assembly, and then release. This is how the virus replication occurs. We have studied in the first lecture. There are 6 steps which occurs like this. This is the diagram which I was referring yesterday. Okay. What are the difficulties in the body, in the host? Cannot be seen under light microscope, cannot be cultivated easily, do not grow on artificial culture media. That is the biggest drawback. And treatment was not available initially. Now situation has changed. There are rapid techniques, RT-PCR, COVID-19 alakadi March, December 19. Now we have the vaccine also. Why it has been, how it has been possible in such a short timing? Because of the rapid techniques available now to detect the viruses, to manufacture the vaccines. Okay, and the current vaccine mRNA is the first time they are using through different vectors. Okay, and then screening for blood transfusion, treatment available. This has changed the viral diseases. Now the first foremost, what we have seen in the bacteriology, here also microscopy plays important role. What we use, generally we use the electron microscope. Light microscope can be used for enclosure body, which I have already told you in the previous slide. Then you can also demonstrate with the spatial microscope like fluorescent microscope and fluorescent antibody technique. Yesterday we had narrated one of the technique, serological reaction is the fluorescent antibody technique. Okay, so these comes under the microscopy. You can directly take the sample and you can see under the electron microscope. Demonstration of viral antigens, the second part. This is the serology now. precipitation. Yesterday we have studied this precipitation reaction. They are good in the demonstration of antigen. We came to know yesterday, right? Precipitation on gel, for example, HBS AG, immunofluorescence, one of the serological reaction, counter immunoelectrophoresis. This we have studied in detail yesterday, enzyme linked immunosorbent. These are all part of the detection of viral antigens by serological reactions. Then you can isolate the viruses. The way we isolate the bacteria from the clinical specimen in the lab by using artificial media such as blood agar or McConkey agar. Similarly, we can also use isolation of viruses by using the laboratory animals or the fertilized egg. This we will discuss more detail in the practical. And in the fertilized egg, you have core Allentech membrane. In the first lecture, I have shown you this diagram: Allentech cavity, amniotic cavity, yolk sac. So here you can cultivate different viruses in the fertilized egg. Or you can also use the organs, tissues or cell cultures for the isolation of the viruses. Growth can be identified by serological method like neutralization or ELISA. Again, in the serological reaction, rise in titer of antibody in the paired sample sera, which we came to know yesterday. It is very important in the serological reaction. First sample at the earliest means the second first stage of end of the first stage of the disease, and the second sample after 2 weeks. This is what is paired sample. Single sample IgM type of antibody detection can be used. IgM because they are the first appearing and first disappearing. So it will represent that the patient is right now suffering from the infection. And techniques: ELISA, HAI, human hemagglutination inhibition test, neutralization test, complement infection test, all these. What are the specimens? We collect specimen based upon the disease. If it is respiratory, collect the throat swab. Now you know that for COVID-19, we are collecting the throat swab. For central nervous system, we collect the CSF. Likewise, we collect the specimen basis on the diseases. This is the important test in the classification of viruses as well as the diagnosis of the viruses. Viral hemagglutination, ability of the virus to agglutinate the heme, that is RBCs, and that can be used as one of the method to detect the viruses. This is how they perform the hemagglutination assay. Virus culture in embryonated egg, there are 4. Then cell lines, there are primary cell lines, diploid cell lines, and then continuous cell lines. Continuous cell lines, generally we take it from the cancerous patient. And in animal inoculation, we use the suckling mice. These are the 4 ways, 4 types or ways by which we can use the embryonated egg for cultivation of the viruses. This is the pictorial form. This is how they inoculate onto the core Allentech membrane. This is the core Allentech membrane. Okay. Then cell cultures, routinely used for growing viruses, classified into 3 types: primary cell cultures, diploid cell cultures, and continuous cell cultures. And continuous cell cultures are derived from the patient who had already suffered from the cancer. HeLa cell lines, which have been taken from the lady Helen. Helen name from her. They have maintained these cell lines from 1960s now. HEP2 cell lines, then Vero cell lines, McCoy cell lines. These are obtained from the malignant patients, and the usefulness of these cell lines, they have the ability to continuously multiply if you replenish with the daily needs of these cells like amino acids or pH or electrolytes and all that. Cell culture, tissue, individual cells. Cells are washed, counted and suspended in a growth medium. And what is the growth medium used for the cell propagation? Minimum essential medium, MEM, we call it as MEM. And it consists of essential amino acids, vitamins, salts, glucose, bicarbonate, etc., which are responsible for propagation of the cells. These are the flat bottom flasks which are used for cell culture. Okay, you can use the tubes also. How do you detect the viruses in the virus growth in the cell culture? By cytopathic effect. What does it mean? There is a destruction of the cells in the cell lines. This I will now I cannot show you how you can see the cytopathic effect. I'll show in the one of the practical. Metabolic inhibition, another way of detection, and heme absorption. Then interference, I told you this in the previous lecture. They compete with the known and unknown viruses. Transformation, viruses transform the cells into the oncogenic or in the cancer cell. And immunofluorescence. These are the 7 ways by which you can detect the viruses. This is all about the virus host interactions. I have done